Hey guys, I'm Uruzi. Since the other series reached the latest chapter, we have a new series today. What if Naruto was in Kingdom Hearts? So my name is Uzumaki Naruto. My dream is to be Hokage, but I'm not there yet. But with a demon in my navel I have work to do. Not only that, but now I got this giant key and this destiny. Perfect. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 1, Shall we start again? Genin Test. Key through the heart, rebirth. Hokage Kakashi picked up a carton of milk, casually regarding it as though deeply engrossed in the nutritional information the label contained. The Hokage nearby smirked as he continued rearranging things in his office. He knew better. So, Team 7. I'm guessing you want the Uchiha survivor? Kakashi shrugged, setting the milk back down. His single visible eye, as usual, showed an indifferent expression. Well, as much indifference as a single eye could communicate. If he can pass. And the others? Sarutobi asked. Kakashi frowned. The Haruno girl seems to be all brains. I'll have to do something about that. As for the Uzumaki kid, he seems almost hopeless. The Hokage chuckled, and Kakashi frowned slightly beneath his mask. Possibly. I trust you've heard about the incident he was involved in with the traitor? Kakashi nodded. Yes. He and his Chunin instructor apparently helped keep Mizuki from getting the scroll to Orochimaru's agents. Sarutobi turned back on the gray-haired Jounin, a smirk on his aged face. Kakashi frowned fully now. Do you know how? Kakashi shrugged. The details are not readily available. Hell, they'd been made classified, beyond even his reach. And there were few secrets Kakashi could not ferret out in this village. The Hokage smirked, digging into a small pile of paperwork on a table, and handing it to the Jounin. Kakashi took it, opening the folder and leafing through it. Part of his mind absently noted that he needed to look underneath a little more when it came to Sarutobi. Before his mind went slightly blank, he looked up from the reports, his visible brow raised. The Hokage's smirk grew wider. Are you sure this Amino isn't overstating things? Kakashi asked. Granted, he sees Naruto as a little brother, but Iruka is not one to mince words or give false praise, the Hokage replied. You've read his reports on Sasuke and Sakura, I take it? Kakashi nodded, blinking again. 2. Not 1, but 2 kenjutsu from that scroll. In one night. Kakashi shook his head and sighed. Well, I didn't see this coming. Especially not that one. He's been training almost non-stop for the last week with his Kage Bunshin and the other jutsu. Sarutobi spoke carefully. The legend has, understandably, terrified him. The third took a deep breath. If they pass, try to help all 3, Kakashi. Naruto in particular. That weapon of his. It won't be an easy burden to bear. Kakashi snorted. I don't put a lot of stock into such legends, Hokage-sama. But, I'll see what the kid can do. The Hokage nodded, and with that, Kakashi left in a flurry of leaves. Sarutobi looked at the carton of milk on the table and closed his eyes, a sad smile on his face. Kid has the lousiest luck. Kakashi entered the classroom, a full 3 hours late. He scrutinized the 3 genin within, and raised an eyebrow. The Uchiha was sitting near the window, fingers steepled, brooding, while the pink-haired Kunoichi babbled happily at him about being on the same team. Uzumaki Naruto sat away from them, chin on his crossed arms, bored and looking at the chalkboard. All 3 turned to look at Kakashi, and he stared back thoughtfully. My first impression of you 3, Kakashi spoke simply, is I don't like you. Sasuke's face darkened, while Sakura's face faltered. Naruto glared. Right. Meet me on the roof, will you? He teleported up there, and soon enough all 3 genin trudged up the stairs to meet him, the sun shining cheerfully over them and the various roofs of Konoha scattered all around them. None of this mattered to the 3 genin as they sat down in front of Kakashi. Sakura sat in the middle between Naruto and Sasuke, edging closer to the brooding Uchiha away from the blonde. Alright, let's start with some introductions. Your name, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams for the future. Sakura blinked. Sensei. Shouldn't you go first, since we don't know anything about you? Kakashi chuckled inside. Silly girl, thinking she's so smart. I'm Hatake Kakashi. I have many likes and dislikes. Dreams? Well, I have many hobbies. The genin all looked depressed, and Kakashi inwardly smirked. Right then. Pinky, you're up first. Sakura sat up a little straighter and smiled. I'm Haruno Sakura. My likes are. Here she turned to Sasuke and blushed, before turning back. My dislikes. She trailed off and glared at Naruto, who blinked back at her before she turned to face Kakashi again. My hobbies and dreams, well. She turned to Sasuke and blushed, giggling a bit. Sasuke made no response, as Naruto humphed and crossed his arms. And I hate Ino Pig. She concluded passionately. Right. Kakashi sighed. Swell. A fangirl. You, the broody one. Go. Sasuke glared at him, before snorting. I'm Uchiha Sasuke. I have many dislikes and few likes. I have no hobbies. As for dreams. Well. It's not so much a dream. But a desire to rebuild my clan, and kill a certain man. Sakura blinked and gawked a bit at Sasuke, as Naruto also shot the Uchiha a strange look. An avenger. Just as I expected, Kakashi thought. He turned at last to Naruto. And finally. You. Naruto adjusted his headband and smiled. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, Arika-sensei, and my friends. I dislike how long it takes for ramen to cook, and people who judge me without knowing me first. Hobbies. I guess training and gardening. Oh, and my dream is to become Hokage. Naruto stated. Sakura and Sasuke shot the blonde curious expressions, which seemed almost overused. So he's been acting weird all day, HM? Kakashi surmised. Right then, you three, we're going to be doing some survival training tomorrow at Training Ground 7. You may not have known this, but the true genin exam lies with the instructor, not with the academy. I will choose, tomorrow, whether you three pass or fail. Note that there is a 66.6% failure rate in this test, so there is a good chance that 1, 2, or even all 3 of you will be sent back to the academy. Oh, and don't eat breakfast, you'll only throw up. Kakashi gave all 3 genin a slightly sadistic smile, before vanishing. The belt test had been used as a means to determine just which ninja had potential to see beyond the ordinary and thus prove themselves able to truly work in the dangerous world of the shinobi. Idiots did not last long here, nor did the self-centered or weak. Kakashi had learned the second aspect of the test particularly well, and thus had a pretty good idea of how this test would go. Naruto would attack first, the idiot, striking wildly and maybe demonstrating some potential and then being promptly defeated. Sakura, being weak, would easily crumble to a simple illusion. And Sasuke, well. The rookie of the year he may be, but still no match for Kakashi. Still, the Hokage had indicated to him that Naruto needed help with his weapon. Time to see if it was everything it was cracked up to be. As Sakura and Sasuke vanished from sight, hiding and obviously looking for the chance to strike, Naruto stayed right where he was, kunai appearing in his hand. Well, you at least have the proper spirit, Kakashi stated, as Naruto charged with a shout. He reached into his pouch, and noted that Naruto froze, staring in worry at what he was pulling out. Kakashi smirked, and revealed. Ika Ika Paradise, Volume 3. Naruto appropriately face-faulted. Hey! Aren't you going to take this seriously? Naruto demanded. Kakashi shook his head. Why should I? It's not like you have an actual chance at beating me. Naruto growled, unconsciously holding his hand out as though to take up a weapon, even though there was already a kunai in his grip. Kakashi smirked as Naruto lunged for him, kicking, jumping, stabbing. His form is terrible, Kakashi reflected, dodging every blow Naruto threw at him. True, Naruto was much faster than he'd expected, making him put in a little more effort, but the boy's fighting style was still sloppy. It's as if he hasn't practiced it in weeks. Come now. Is this all you're capable of? And the third Hokage had such high expectations of you, especially considering what you wield. Naruto halted his attack, and leapt away, landing in a crouch. His wide eyes were all he needed to confirm. He told you. Kakashi felt a little confused about this reaction. He'd expected Naruto to use that weapon right off the bat, driven out of irrational anger. But Naruto was purposely holding back. Yes, and unless you are going to take this seriously, then I won't either. But, even if you do, It's not like you'll succeed anyway. Perhaps you should just quit now. Kakashi further prodded. He could easily pick out the confused expressions of the other genin, hidden as they were. Kakashi smirked a little, his attention right back on Naruto. Instead of rushing him in uncontrollable rage, Naruto stood up, a determined glare on his face. I don't give up. I'll never give up. I don't care how strong you are. With that, Naruto dropped his kunai and stretched out his hand. A controlled burst of light later. And Kakashi blinked. It was a giant key. Kakashi hadn't known what to expect, but a literal giant key. The blade was silver in color, with crown-like teeth at the end. The guard was bright yellow and encased the hilt and Naruto's hand. From the very end, a chain with an unusual, three-circle-like charm dangled. Naruto turned and pointed the keyblade at Kakashi, both hands taking the hilt as he fell into a rather unusual stance. Before leaping with the weapon in a lancing position, covering the distance to Kakashi easily, the jounin deflected the strike with the steel plate in his glove, ignoring the minor cut through the fabric. Naruto, however, was not done yet, and twisted in midair with the force of the deflection to swing down on Kakashi's head. Quick as a flash, the jounin switched out his Ika Paradise for a kunai, and deflected this blow, spinning around as Naruto landed a few meters away. The blonde launched himself at Kakashi again, swinging the keyblade to his right and redirecting his path, before jumping into the air and swinging forward with the almost comical weapon for Kakashi's shoulder. Kakashi deflected it as Naruto swung the keyblade, relative to his orientation, up, launching a kick at the white-haired jounin's chest. Kakashi blocked with his other arm, sending Naruto spinning at an angle to land on his feet and swing himself around the masked jounin, trying to strike from behind. Well, this is a bit more interesting, Kakashi observed to Naruto, as he blocked the blonde's next attack with his kunai held out behind him. Naruto pulled the keyblade towards him, catching Kakashi's knife with the teeth of the key, while swinging his left foot forward to kick Kakashi in the back. Kakashi twirled away, dodging the strike. Kakashi had wondered for a moment just how the boy could be doing so much better with just the keyblade. Before it came to him, and he smirked as he continued dueling the fast, agile, and perfectly dangerous strikes. I see you figured out the big advantage Kage Bunshin gives you, while training with it, HM. Kakashi observed. Naruto flew back, another strike deflected, and he landed, breathing a little harder than normal. What? What do you mean? Naruto growled, gripping the keyblade by the chain and spinning it as fast as he could over his head. Once it had picked up sufficient momentum, he let it fly in a twirling, deadly blur. Kakashi directed some chakra into his muscles as he threw his kunai, and the smaller, chakra-powered projectile easily knocked the larger weapon off course. Naruto had been charging behind the keyblade, apparently to strike him barehanded. The keyblade flashed back into Naruto's hands from mid-flight as he lunged for Kakashi's chest. The jounin was only mildly surprised and able to draw another kunai to parry the strike, but Kakashi had to admit it wasn't a bad move. Let me guess. You created as many Kage Bunshin as you could, over the course of the week before the teams were picked, and you fought them with the keyblade, for hours at a time, Kakashi surmised. Naruto scowled and leapt forward again, swinging down at Kakashi in a hammer blow. Kakashi evaded again, and blocked Naruto's quick counterstrike. So? What of it? Kakashi sighed. No, he doesn't get it. Naruto lunged again, but this time he threw himself forward, using the keyblade as leverage. Naruto twisted forward in the air, hands settling into position to call his weapon once more, but this time within the jounin's guard. Kakashi leapt back, quickly making a few hand seals. Doton, Tenshu no Jutsu. A pillar of earth leapt up beneath Naruto and sent him flying, crashing into the nearby pond with a tremendous splash. Kakashi smirked slightly beneath his mask. He's gotten the memories of all the Kage Bunshin he's fought. Probably had them attack him en masse in as many ways he could think of. If Naruto could make several dozen Kage Bunshin, at the very least, every day, he could have amassed hundreds of hours of training, relatively speaking. It certainly wasn't wasted, Kakashi further surmised, as a sopping wet Naruto emerged from the pond, death glaring him. Still holding the keyblade, Naruto held his fingers together in the ram seal around the yellow guard of the weapon. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 6 more Narutos appeared, all holding keyblades. As one, they spun up their weapons and threw them, charging behind them. Kakashi easily dodged them all, and waited to see which Naruto would regain his weapon. The other keyblades were merely copies, and lacked the abilities of the original. And when that Naruto did, Gotcha! A voice behind him yelled, and Kakashi's single eye widened as the keyblade rematerialized in front of his chin, being pulled for a chokehold around his neck by two familiar hands. The rest of the Narutos were charging for him, and his brief hesitation from surprise had let them leapt into striking range. The first fist flew for his face, as the keyblade's dull part closed on his throat. Ugh! A quick replacement jutsu saw Naruto choking one of his own Kage Bunshins, while the others dogpiled him. Shit! Ugh! Damn it! The clones shouted, as the real Naruto slashed through them all, dispelling them into poofs of smoke. He was breathing hard, and looking around, eyes narrowed. Kakashi smirked a bit, as the blonde's eyes obviously caught sight of a bell lying beneath a tree. It was most obviously a trap, Yawa, which Naruto fell for, hook, line, and sinker. He dangled by his feet, swinging in the rope trap like a wind chime. Kakashi easily walked up and bent down, retrieving the bell. Did you really think I'd be that stupid? Kakashi asked, amused. Naruto scowled at him, summoning the keyblade once more and trying to cut the rope. Kakashi sighed. Any more usage of the keyblade in this test, and you automatically fail, Kakashi'd get him. Naruto glared back. First, you tell me to go all out, and now, you're forbidding me? That's stupid. No, because going all out is not the point of this test, Kakashi sighed, and Naruto blinked, the keyblade vanishing from his hand. He grimaced, his version of a thoughtful expression appearing on his. Kakashi quickly used the replacement jutsu again, just in time to avoid a barrage of shuriken and kunai from Sasuke. He shook his head as Naruto continued to dangle from the tree, his surprise at Kakashi's exit replaced by that thoughtful look again. Kakashi sighed, and decided to check up on his other charges. He didn't hold out a lot of hope for Sakura, or the Uchiha, at figuring out the test, but at least Naruto seemed to be thinking it out. If the other two were smart, and he knew they were, and they were listening, and he knew they were doing this too, then the hint should be just enough for them to figure it out. Why he gave them a hint, Kakashi wasn't sure. Maybe the fact that he'd been so completely wrong about Naruto's abilities. Maybe because he felt he needed a change in his routine. Kakashi didn't really know. He'd have to wait and see. 30 minutes later, Naruto had finally gotten out of the trap and set out across the training field, looking about himself carefully. Kakashi frowned. He'd already easily dispatched Sakura with an elementary genjutsu. He hadn't even had to hit her. She fainted at the sight of a bloody, mangled Sasuke, and Sasuke was buried up to his neck thanks to his headhunter jutsu. Naruto finally came across Sakura, who was woozily getting to her feet. Hey, Sakura-chan. I was thinking that. Naruto. Stop bothering me. Don't you remember that this is a test, and we're supposed to each get a bell or we fail? Maybe that's why you failed 3 times you enjoy at it. Sakura snarled, stalking away from him. Naruto's face held a hurt expression, before he tried again. But Sakura-chan, look. I got pretty close to beating him a few times, and Sasuke, well, he did about as well as me, so I was thinking we could all. Is Sasuke-kun alright? Was he hurt? Oh no, he needs me. Sasuke-kun, I'm coming. Sakura shouted, rushing in a random direction and leaving Naruto alone, staring after her. Team up and beat him up to make him pass us, he sighed. Kakashi smirked a little at that. A few moments later, Sakura's shriek filled the air, and he knew she'd seen Sasuke decapitated. Naruto made to go after her, but then the alarm went off. Time's up, Kakashi said behind Naruto, and the blonde jumped a little. He turned around and smiled nervously. Kakashi sighed. None of you got any bells. Yeah, Naruto replied, rubbing the back of his head sheepishly. The Jounin turned and walked for the clearing, Naruto following. Sakura was little worse for wear, just looking frazzled while tied to the log, while Sasuke simply looked dirty and pissed off. Naruto was sitting next to Sakura's log, looking curiously at Kakashi. Well, the good news is, only Naruto has to go back to the academy, Kakashi spoke at last, leading Sakura to smiling brightly and Sasuke to frown, but still shoot Naruto a curious look. Naruto sighed miserably. Sakura and Sasuke. You should quit being ninjas entirely. The shock was evident on all 3 ninjas' faces as Kakashi continued his tirade. Sasuke, you struck out entirely on your own to get the bells and didn't even consider asking for help, thinking the others would only get in your way. Sakura, when Naruto asked you to team up with him and get the bells, you were too focused on Sasuke to listen. Naruto was the only one who thought of teaming up to get the bells, even after he'd been beaten and trapped. Kakashi shook his head at Sasuke and Sakura. What you did mocks what being a ninja is all about. What you are spoiled brats who couldn't see the true point of the exercise. But sensei. You said that to pass, we had to get a bell, and there's only two. Sakura pointed out, fidgeting against the log. Kakashi sighed. That was the point. It was supposed to create dissension in the ranks. It was designed to see if you could put your individual interests aside and work towards the greater good. As a team. Kakashi shook his head. As it stands, none of you deserve to be ninja. Sasuke rushing him was completely expected, as Naruto and Sakura just gawped. Easily Kakashi caught Sasuke's arm and spun him around, holding him to the ground with just one foot. Pitch. Sasuke snarled around the mouthful of dirt he'd just eaten, and Kakashi sighed. A very good example, Sakura. Kill Naruto or Sasuke dies. Sakura's hand almost instinctively twitched for her weapons pouch, bound as she was, and Naruto blinked at her. The kid looked rather betrayed, Kakashi surmised. See, this is what can happen on a mission if you don't work together. That is why we put you into three-man teams. So you can support each other to accomplish the mission. Kakashi turned to the stone memorial behind him, and stared at it for a long time. He let Sasuke go, who tried to walk back over to the logs with as much dignity as he could muster. On this stone are the names of ninja who lost their lives on missions, including my best friends, he spoke solemnly. Kakashi turned back around. However, thanks to Naruto, I'm willing to give you all one more chance at it. Sasuke, Naruto, you can eat the lunches in the bentos. However, don't give Sakura any. Why? Naruto asked. Kakashi glared. Because out of all of you, she did not even make the effort to try to get the bells. My word is law on this. If you give her food, you all fail, got it? With Sasuke and Naruto's nods, Kakashi left. And observed them from the tree line. Sasuke and Naruto took their lunches. But Naruto hesitated at hearing Sakura's stomach rumble. She blushed furiously. Hey Sakura-chan. Here, have some, Naruto said, looking around carefully. Sakura blinked. What? If you do that, we all fail. Naruto shrugged with a smile. I forgot to not eat breakfast, so I'll be fine. We're going to need you at full strength, you know. Sakura blinked, and gaped even more when Sasuke held out his lunch for her. Sasuke-kun. You too. I won't have you being a liability, he said flatly, and Sakura smiled at him. Thank you, Sasuke-kun. Naruto, she added, a little hesitantly. They began to feed her. Kakashi sighed. Well. There goes all my free time. The theatrics had been fun to do, Kakashi later admitted to himself, but the light of understanding showing up in the genin's eyes. Well, it wasn't so bad, he decided, being a teacher. After telling them when they'd start missions as Team 7, he departed, as Sakura and Sasuke headed off for their homes. Naruto, on the other hand, headed for a training field nearer his home, and Kakashi followed. Naruto stopped in the middle of the clearing, sighed, and summoned the keyblade. He looked it over, his expression that of sober, reluctant acceptance. Kakashi shook his head from the foliage that concealed him, his curiosity about the Uzumaki boy and these changes becoming almost unbearable. Screw it, he decided. He was Naruto-sensei. He could sure as hell drop in and ask him about this weapon of his. Naruto. Naruto jumped and turned around, glaring at him. Kakashi did, and I smiled back. Kakashi-sensei. Do you have to do that? I think everyone's life needs some surprises in it from time to time, he cheekily replied. Naruto grimaced and mumbled under his breath, turning to head for another part of the field. No more for me, please. Kakashi frowned beneath his mask. Naruto. I have to admit, I underestimated you considerably. Naruto turned around and blinked. He smiled a little, some of that familiar devil-may-care attitude emerging. Yeah, people do that a lot, he replied with a small laugh. Kakashi crossed his arms and adopted a far more serious expression. That weapon. It's the cause of your recent changes, isn't it? Naruto sighed, holding out the weapon. Before turning and throwing it as hard as he could into the woods. A few seconds later, it reappeared, quick as a flash, back in his hands. The blonde sighed. Yeah. All I wanted to do was save Iruka-sensei. And instead, I end up with this thing. Naruto glared at the keyblade. Isn't the kyuubi enough? I mean, people hate me enough for it. And now I've got a weapon capable of destroying whole worlds if I'm not careful. Why me? I didn't want any of this, damn it. Kakashi sighed. Maybe it's better you start at the beginning, Kakashi suggested. Naruto turned around, blinking curiously. Since I'm your sensei now, it will help me help you better if I know everything, the Jounin elaborated. Naruto nodded, and sat down in the grass, his gaze on the keyblade as though both wanting to be rid of it, and beseeching it for strength. After casting a privacy jutsu around them, Kakashi sat at all attention on one of his first, and possibly unluckiest, students. It began when I stole the scroll. Chapter 2, retake a deep dive in. Uzumaki Naruto, age 12, leaped through the trees of the forest at breakneck speeds, a heavy scroll bouncing along with him every branch of the way. His eyes were wide and his teeth gritted in agitation. You are the nine-tailed fox. The demon who killed Irika's parents. No. It's not true. It's not true. No, Naruto, don't listen to him. It's forbidden. Forbidden? Why? Why? Is this why everyone hates me? Because I'm the demon? As much as Naruto tried to deny it, Mizuki's declaration made sense. His whisker marks, the hatred of the villagers, the social isolation. For God's sake, his birthday was on the same day the kyuubi was supposedly killed. Naruto felt tears at the corners of his eyes, as he stopped, clutching a tree branch under him as he panted. I'm a demon. The demon that killed Irika-sensei's parents. That killed. Naruto gulped and continued breathing shakily. He looked up and saw through a gap in the foliage, into a clearing. Two figures fought in the dappled moonlight. Irika-sensei. Naruto leaped forward, watching the two ninja battle, and as they came into better focus he could hear more of their conversation. Don't you get it, Naruto's just like me. Mizuki laughed. He wants the scroll for his own vengeance and power. That's how demons are. He'll use it to destroy everything. Naruto growled at this, as Irika, leaning against a tree, glared back before responding. You're right, Irika got out, breathing hard. Naruto felt ice fall into the pit of his stomach, and he shook in grief and anger. So that's it. Irika-sensei. He lied to me, like every other person in this village. He thinks I'm a demon. That is how demons are, but Naruto is not the fox. He's nothing like a demon. He works hard, puts his everything into succeeding. And yes, he sometimes fails, and yes, everyone jumps on him, but he gets right back up and keeps trying. He never returns hatred with hatred, he never gives up, and every time he puts his whole heart into it. That is what separates him from the kyuubi. He's nothing like it. Mizuki tensed, looking as though he'd try to kill Irika right there. But instead he began laughing mockingly. Nothing like the demon. Ha! I bet you right now, he's running away with that scroll full of secrets for his own use. The power within it. How could the kyuubi resist? Naruto gripped the tree branch more tightly, teeth bared in a snarl. That bastard! I'll show him. Naruto made to form the seal for Kage Bunshin. But paused. He cursed mentally. Damn it, I could barely make one clone with this jutsu. How is one more me going to help here? I need something stronger. I need something to stop him. But what? Naruto quickly pulled the scroll out again, sudden inspiration as he opened it. At the very bottom of the scroll was a jutsu he couldn't begin to make heads or tails of, but it required only his signature in blood to work it. He'd ignored it before because he needed to learn how to make bunshins to pass the academy exam. It mentioned something about a dive, a trial to gain strength from. It was better than nothing, Naruto decided, biting his thumb and quickly signing his name, pumping chakra into it as the instructions dictated. The letters of his name signed in blood began to glow bright white, and Naruto cried out as they flashed, blinding him. He blinked a few times before feeling like he was falling in an endless black void. Splash! BGM, dive into the heart/study. Water was all around him, and Naruto waved his arms and kicked his feet as he kept sinking. His desperate flailing caused him to cast off his goggles, ignored as he tried to right himself, but he just kept descending, deeper and deeper. After what felt like ages to his burning lungs, Naruto felt the top of his head hit solid ground. Suddenly he collapsed, the feeling of being surrounded by water vanishing, and he breathed deeply of air once more. He then begun to hear a dark and ominous music playing as he ventured deeper into the platform. What the hell? Naruto muttered, rolling over onto his stomach and pushing himself up to a sitting position. Frowning at the darkness that seemed to cover everything but himself, the blonde reached out a fist and tapped the surface he'd landed on. The sound echoed, like he'd hit a huge glass pane of some sort. Naruto stood up, eyes closed in a characteristic thoughtful expression for him. Hey! Is anyone there? Hello? Naruto called out. His voice echoed, which seemed to tell Naruto that he might be in some kind of cave. But how did I get here? What kind of jutsu is this anyway? Naruto took a cautious step forward, and when his foot still landed on solid. Whatever, he took another. The hell? Naruto shouted, as his foot was pushed back by birds emerging as one from the darkness, like they'd been so tightly packed beneath his feet that they had felt like solid, unfeathery ground. As more and more birds took flight, a yellow light grew, and Naruto abruptly realized that the surface he was standing on was illuminated. More birds flew off, the light grew brighter, and Naruto could make out the image on the platform. Some girl in a weird dress. What's with those guys in the circles? Their noses are huge, Naruto thought, walking a little less cautiously around the yellow-tinged platform. He walked up to the edge of it, and looked down, the black abyss all he could see. Rummaging around in his pocket, he triumphantly produced a coin and dropped it. He tilted his head, trying to hear it hit the ground. I don't think I want to jump off, he decided, after waiting a good 5 minutes to hear something. He backed off from the edge, and looked around the platform again. Some jutsu this is, Naruto muttered. Iruka-sensei might already be dead now, and it's all because I couldn't do anything. Damn it, do not worry. Time passes differently here than on the outside, a toneless voice spoke. Naruto blinked, and looked around. Hello? Who are you? I am what is and what will be. That's not helpful at all. Naruto shouted irritably. Hey, whoever you are. Do you know how I can get back to the forest? I need to help my sensei. You can only leave here if you pass the trial. Look, I don't have time for this. You can only help your sensei if you pass the trial, the voice repeated. Naruto groaned. Alright. Fine. Let's just get this done as quickly as possible. I need to help Iruka-sensei. A sword, a shield, and a staff all appeared in front of Naruto, hovering in midair. There are 3 paths to choose from. Do you choose the path of strength, the warrior? Here, a light shining on the sword seemed to increase just enough to indicate it. The path of defense, the guardian. The shield was illuminated. Or the path of wisdom, the mystic. The staff was illuminated, and Naruto grimaced. Do I have to choose? Do you surrender only at the first test? What? Uzumaki Naruto never surrenders, stupid voice. Naruto tried to pick. Truthfully, his first instinct had been to go for the sword. It might help stop Mizuki, right? But Iruka needed protection. So maybe the shield. The staff though, it seemed to radiate some kind of power, something Naruto couldn't name, but for some reason it just did not appeal to him. Air. Damn it, just choose one, Naruto thought to himself. Wait, when did it say I only had to choose one? The shield was nearest, so Naruto grabbed it. Slipping it on his back, he ran to the sword and grabbed it. Just as he was about to grab the staff, it vanished, leaving Naruto alone with his choice weapons. Odd, no one has ever done what you have done. Yeah, great, can we move on? Naruto shouted, putting the sword on his back between his clothes and the shield. As though offended, the platform beneath him shattered, leaving Naruto to fall into the abyss. Me and my big mouth, wh-dash. Thud. Ow. Naruto grimaced and rubbed the back of his head, before pulling himself up into a sitting position. This platform's drawing was of another woman in a weird dress, blue-tinged where the previous one had been yellow. Naruto looked at the edges, and noted the cartoonish-style mice in little circles. This is probably the weirdest dream I've ever had, Naruto complained, getting up to his feet. Now is not the time for complaint. This is the second test. Little black puddles appeared on the platform, oozing for him. Naruto stepped back a little, as they began to rise up and take shape. The hell are these things? Naruto shouted. These are expressions of darkness, which lie within all things. The things now looked like little men with large bug-like yellow eyes and antennae. Jerkily they moved for him, tiny clawed fingers reaching out for Naruto. Out of instinct, Naruto pulled a kunai from his leg pouch and threw it at one of the things, but it phased right through it, doing no damage. What the dash? Normal weapons will not work against the darkness. The power to stop them must come from within. Naruto grimaced as he dodged a few of the shadow creatures, leaping high over their heads with his ninja skills. However, more and more began to emerge, and Naruto soon found himself with nowhere to jump to. He pulled the shield and sword from his back and looked back at the hordes of creatures, the voice's words replaying in his mind. Within, right? Okay, let's see if this does anything. With that, Naruto focused chakra into the weapons. Immediately they changed shape, and with a burst of light, the blonde ninja found himself holding the staff he'd seen floating on the previous platform. One of the creatures leaped for him out of the swarm, and with a swing of the blue rod it was rendered dust. Now that's more like it, Naruto shouted, leaping forward and slashing through the swarm. His chakra augmented agility, while poor by his peers' standards, easily let him finish off the creatures. Ha! That wasn't so hard. Your heart is strong. Few have made it past this test. Naruto considered the staff. So, why the staff? What happened to my sword? When you choose a path to take, you also give up another. Your conscious choice was of the guardian, while your unconscious chose the mystic. To have these, you gave up the power of the warrior. At least that was how it was supposed to be. The staff vanished and Naruto was left with nothing in the darkness. However, within you lies darkness as well as light, the voice went on. Naruto blinked and looked up, as though trying to pinpoint where it was coming from. You mean the Kyubi? Not only the demon, but darkness found in all beings: hate, sorrow, greed, fear, ignorance, anger, pride. Having these is part of existence, but there are those who let the darkness inside them overwhelm the light. Those creatures you slew were such examples. Naruto gulped, eyeing the spotless mosaic underneath his feet. You mean those things? Do not mourn them, the voice said, almost comfortingly. They are not true beings any longer, but manifestation of people's darkness. They became so steeped in their own darkness that it took on a will of its own to find more hearts and corrupt them as their own were. Naruto clenched his fist as he thought back to the reality outside of the blackness. Like Mizuki, the one you speak of has let his darkness overwhelm him, though his transformation is far more subtle. The worst monsters are those who do not appear as such. And not all beasts are filled with darkness within. Naruto nodded marginally. Okay. What's next? The last test. The platform, instead of shattering, seemed to produce mini platforms in a long set of stairs leading up. Naruto shrugged, and hopped along, taking the steps two at a time. This platform, he immediately noticed, was different. A tall, blonde woman, long hair curling down past her shoulders, stood surrounded by black thorny vines. In three little circles above her, three odd-looking women in matching tall, pointed hats tied under their chins held expressions of worry. In the background, a menacing woman with horns stood, a single hand raised. Naruto gulped, and saw a doorway on the other side. It shone brightly, and Naruto was forced to shield his eyes. What? What do I do? The closer to light you walk, the longer your shadow. But don't be afraid. Don't stop walking. And if I do? Stop walking, I mean. Naruto asked, his voice wavering only a little as he stepped back. His shadow begun to grow and change, into that. The form it took was familiar to Naruto. He'd never known how or why, until now, why his nightmares had sometimes held the image of a gigantic fox with 9 tails. But here, his shadow took the form of the great demon, glowing red eyes and whiskers leering at him from the darkness. Then the darkness will consume not only you, but everything you hold dear, the voice warned. Terror filled Naruto's chest, icy cold and paralyzing. He shook as the raw killing intent of this being washed over him, mocking him, and he fell to his bottom, shivering. How? Hello? Voice? Hello? Helgich. Naruto rolled just in time as a massive tail slammed down where he had sat moments before. He rolled up to a standing position, struggling to fight the suffocating terror. Why do you try? The shadow asked, its glowing red mouth curling into a sneer. Why do you continue? Your life has no meaning. Your dreams are nonsense. You are weak and foolish and can barely stand before me. So why? Images of Naruto's mistreatment, his failures, the mocking laughter of his peers, the derisive snorts of villagers, the sad faces of the Hokage, Iruka-sensei. Iruka-sensei. Naruto is not the fox. He's nothing like a demon. He works hard, puts his everything into succeeding. And yes, he sometimes fails, and yes, everyone jumps on him, but he gets right back up and keeps trying. He never returns hatred with hatred, he never gives up, and every time he puts his whole heart into it. That is what separates him from the Kyuubi. He's nothing like it. Naruto shook and grit his teeth, looking up at the menace towering above him. Because so long as one person believes in me, one person cares about me, I'll do anything and everything I can to protect that person. Naruto snarled and held his hands to his sides. You can knock me down like all the rest. You can insult me, attack me, mock me, beat me into a pulp. But I will never, ever, give up. You can't scare me into quitting. You'll have to kill me first. Naruto roared. The sword and shield flashed into the boy's hands and he raised them up. Naruto charged, leaping to avoid a tail, before twisting in midair to avoid another. As though receiving cues, he spun out of the way of another swinging tail and landed on another, leapt up and thrust his sword right at the Shadow Fox's wide eyes. Yah! Naruto bellowed, striking the demon across the nose, before spinning like a top to land another blow before falling back. Naruto grabbed onto one of the shadow's waving tails and swung himself back up. The fox fell back as Naruto continued raining blows on its head, its tails moving too slowly to intercept the orange-clad ninja. Insect! The beast roared, falling back off the platform entirely into the shadows from one last strike in the snout. Naruto fell back, landing in a sprawled heap on the edge of the woman's dress. He shook his head of any dizziness. Before the whole platform began to tilt. Oh shit! Naruto yelled, and he tried to stab his sword into the ground with which to try and slow his descent, but it scraped uselessly against the hard material. Naruto barely got a grip on the edge of the disc with one hand, his shield clutched tightly in the other while the sword fell into the inky darkness. Damn, he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. He felt a gust of wind blow down on him, and he dared to trace the sensation's path. A vast, glowing vortex had appeared far below him, being produced by the Shadow Fox's gaping jaws. Naruto's grip loosened, little by little, as he kicked his legs in an attempt to gain some footing. Shit! Naruto cursed, slipping off the platform entirely and falling for the vortex. The dark demon's red eyes narrowed in victory, which Naruto noticed and returned with a glare. Answering another strange, unconscious cue, he pulled the shield off his left arm and, as though winding up to pitch a baseball, and hurled his weapon into the maelstrom. Kaboom! Naruto's vision was stolen, but he felt himself falling again, only this time to land on a hard, familiar surface. The shield flew back towards Naruto and he caught it. The Shadow Fox lay before him, its head on the platform in front of him, its tails limp. Wearily it looked up at Naruto. You! How? Naruto held the shield up and prepared to throw it again when he saw the Shadow Fox open its mouth once more. An orb of black energy started to grow with red and black blobs of energy were pulled into it. Naruto screamed a battle cry, and rushed the shadow, leaping straight for its head. He took his shield and rammed it right between the monster's jaws. It roared in agony around the shield, light erupting from the crevices between its teeth and quickly spreading, dissolving, eroding the monster away, until nothing remained. The triumphant blonde fell back from his leap, flipping backwards, landing face first on the platform. Ow! Son of a dash! The blonde cursed, pushing himself up by his arms and holding his tender nose. Noticing his shadow, again, before him, he poked it once with his foot. Naruto breathed a deep sigh of relief while grabbing the shield and clumsily getting to his feet. You have succeeded. Yeah, no thanks to you, Naruto muttered. That was a foe only you could have defeated, the voice said. I had no place in it. So? Can I save Iruka-sensei now? The blonde demon container asked. Yes, but be warned. This power is yours, and can never be given back. If you keep this trial's lessons in your heart, if you stay true to yourself and the light within, you will do great things with it. Naruto paused at the threshold of the door of light and looked back. In the darkness he could make out three figures that weren't there a moment ago. One was clearly female and the other were male, one taller than the other. Each one pointed a sword-looking weapon that was difficult to see in the dark at the door and twisted, almost as if turning a key. Naruto turned back and took a deep breath. And if I fall into darkness? The light increased in intensity, filling his vision and mind, as the voice's last words reached him. You know the answer to that already. Key bearer. Iruka struggled to get back up, but the wounds in his legs and back bled heavily. He felt dizzy, and his vision was slightly clouding. Mizuki's grin was all too clear though. Well, goodbye Iruka. Don't worry, you'll be seeing your demon student soon enough, the silver-haired man, once his friend, laughed mockingly. With a burst of chakra, the giant shuriken in his hand began to spin like a buzzsaw, and Mizuki rushed forward. Iruka grit his teeth, determinedly staring his death in the face as a true shinobi. Naruto. I'm sorry. As though summoned from his thoughts, the orange-clad boy in question appeared in front of him. His eyes widened, his voice tried to yell out a warning. A flash of light and Mizuki was flying back. Over Naruto's shoulder, Iruka could see the anger and shock in the traitor's face. You! Naruto snarled, gripping his weapon in both hands. A moment passed where he looked over the weapon. Key bearer, ha! Well, least the title fits, Naruto thought wryly. Despite its almost ridiculous appearance, Naruto could feel the raw power the weapon emitted, a power that seemed to echo in his chest. No. Not my chest. My heart. This is the keyblade. Your heart's power given form. Naruto blinked, a bit confused at the voice popping back up in the real world. And Naruto? Naruto shook his head free of distraction and swung forward, parrying Mizuki's thrown giant shuriken and sending it spinning off into the dark trees. Mizuki himself snarled at Naruto. What the hell is that? Naruto smirked, before forming the ram's seal in front of the hilt of the weapon. Hope you're watching, Iruka-sensei. This is for graduation, he said calmly, never minding Iruka's gawk. The blonde took a deep breath. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. At once the clearing was filled with Narutos, all with keyblades, and all glaring at an increasingly pale Mizuki. The original raised his weapon up over his head. Charge! And the last thing Mizuki would remember from this night was a flood of ninja in orange, wielding giant keys that they proceeded to hit him with. A lot. Iruka could not help staring at the orange-clad blonde, giant key-shaped weapon leaning against his shoulder, walking calmly up to him. Behind him, a beaten Mizuki lay, covered in gashes and bruises so numerous he looked more the victim of a stampede of bulls instead of a boy. A boy with a Jounin-level jutsu at his command. A boy wielding a weapon that Iruka had only seen mentioned in ancient legends. Iruka-sensei. You okay? Iruka nodded, popping a soldier pill into his mouth. Using a very basic medical jutsu, he ran a glowing hand over the worst of his injuries. Naruto knelt next to him, giant key weapon still laying across his shoulder. He looked at his sensei in concern. You got pretty beat up, Iruka-sensei. I'm sorry, Naruto said. I tried to find a jutsu to help you with, but... Iruka smiled at the blonde, who looked uncharacteristically melancholy. You... got that? Whatever it is. From the scroll? Iruka asked. Naruto nodded. Keyblade. Yeah, and Kage Bunshin too. Naruto trailed off, wincing. Iruka shook his head and clapped Naruto on the shoulder, smiling when Naruto's eyes rose to meet his. You did very well, Naruto. I'm very, very proud of you. Naruto smiled back softer and more subdued than what Iruka had remembered out of his student. But it was still Naruto. Now then, Iruka went on, getting to his feet and waving off an extended hand from the blonde. Close your eyes. Naruto blinked, and then shrugged as he complied. He felt fabric descend onto his forehead, and the ends of a bandana be tied around the back of his head. He grinned, and opened his eyes to a beaming Iruka, the rising sun's first rays giving his teacher an ethereal glow. You, Naruto, have proven yourself a ninja of Konoha, through and through, he said, paternal pride in his voice. Naruto felt tears begin to gather at the corners of his eyes, but he fought them back, instead moving forward and wrapping his sensei up in a hug, which was returned. Naruto, however, felt the keyblade in his grip still, and a frown came onto his face. Iruka, pulling back a little, saw the change in the blonde's expression and frowned as well. Naruto. The boy ninja released the hug entirely, turning a bit at an angle to Iruka and studying the keyblade. Iruka-sensei. I think we need to see the Hokage. Observing the events as they unfolded through his crystal ball, the Hokage smirked wryly as he read Naruto's lips. That you do, Naruto. That you do. Chapter 3 Relight Hikari. The Sandame's tower had never seemed so intimidating before to Naruto, as he and Iruka walked towards the double doors, ANBU flanking them. Iruka held the forbidden scroll, while Naruto still held the keyblade, leaning back on his shoulder. Though their faces were hidden by their trademark masks, Naruto could tell that they were staring at him. There was no killing intent, and growing up in a village where most of the inhabitants hated you tended to make you aware of that kind of thing, but definitely a general uneasiness in the air. Maybe because a kid who didn't even pass the academy exams got past them all, Naruto thought, and smirked a bit before the double doors opened and he and his teacher walked inside. The third Hokage was behind his desk, fingers stapled before him. He surveyed both with an impassive expression. Iruka gingerly handed the scroll over, and the Hokage's face finally broke into a small smile. Mizuki tricked Naruto into stealing the scroll for him, Iruka began, but the Hokage held up a hand for silence. I know most of the particulars of this night. So, I'll let you ask some questions now. Naruto grimaced, and rubbed the back of his head with his free hand nervously. Old man. Why didn't you ever tell me I was the Kyuubi? The Hokage chuckled a bit, causing Naruto to glare. Hey! This isn't funny, old man. Naruto, I'm laughing because of how far this stupidity has run, the Hokage sighed, shaking his head. Naruto, you are not the Kyuubi, you merely contain it. Naruto blinked and turned to Iruka, who sighed. I know that you were told that the fourth Hokage died 12 years ago killing the Kyuubi. I even taught that. But the truth is that while the fourth Hokage was indeed powerful, even he was not strong enough to kill the Nine Tails. Sarutobi nodded. A demon like the Kyuubi cannot be truly killed, because it is simply not designed to die. So, the Yondaime instead created a sealing jutsu that would seal the Kyuubi's soul and power away, bound to a human soul. Naruto gawked, and unconsciously ran his hand down his stomach. You mean the seal that shows up whenever I mold chakra? Sarutobi nodded gravely, and smiled in a paternal way. In truth, it was probably the most brilliant invention the fourth ever came up with. The Shikifujin is a prison that contains the soul and chakra of the fox and binds it to yours. When you die, the Kyuubi dies, and thus the threat is gone forever. However, you are only mildly influenced by its presence. The Hokage said. At least the threat is gone forever to my knowledge. The Biju are entities of great mystery, they are. Naruto rubbed his cheek. Like my whiskers. Sarutobi nodded. And, I suspect, your stamina and fast healing. Have you noticed, Naruto, that not once have you ever gotten sick? That injuries that take weeks to heal for others take only days for you? The fourth intended that he designed the seal to give you the most benefit of having the Kyuubi within you. Naruto frowned. Except for the hatred of the villagers, he muttered. Iruka frowned as well, and Sarutobi sighed. The fourth had hoped that the village would see you as its savior. You keep the fox from rampaging, and the advantages it offers you give you great potential as a ninja. But, to them you are only a reminder of what the Kyuubi took from them, the terror, the death. Naruto sighed, and looked at the keyblade. And this thing? Sarutobi smiled. The keyblade. Of all who have attempted to use Moguri no Yushu, you are among the first to come out of the trance without becoming a demon. Iruka gawked and Naruto blinked. A demon? This was news to him. Sarutobi smirked. For years we thought that Moguri no Yushu was a transformation jutsu, taking the soul out of the body and deliberately encasing it in the shell of a dark beast, so it was made forbidden. It is likely Mizuki was stealing the scroll for Orochimaru to get that jutsu. Then why was it so easy for me to get? Naruto asked. He blinked at the incredulous expression on the Hokage's face. What? I know that the ANBU should have caught me. Hell, you caught me, and I was only able to escape because of sexy no. Ahem, yes, well, Sarutobi coughed, hiding a mild blush. It was mainly because I told the ANBU to let you into the tower whenever you needed to. Naruto looked down at the ground, immensely disappointed. Oh, the Hokage smiled slightly. But enough of that. Tell me what happened while you used the Moguri no Yushu. Naruto nodded, and quickly summarized his experience, from the voice to the shadow kitsune. Iruka remained silent, eyes full of concern when Naruto related the voice's warning. It told me that this power, the keyblade, could lead to great darkness. But I'm not sure how, Naruto shrugged, looking the strange weapon over. I mean, this thing doesn't look too dangerous. The Hokage smirked. Naruto, would you mind handing me the keyblade? Naruto shrugged, and tossed it over to the old man, who caught it deftly. Not a second later, the key-shaped weapon vanished in a white flash of light, and returned in a similar flash to Naruto's hand. Iruka and Naruto gawked at this, while Sarutobi nodded, his thoughts seemingly confirmed. The keyblade is bound to your soul, Naruto, your heart, in essence. It has become, essentially, an extension of you, a part of your soul given physical form. Now, according to legend, long ago another key-bearer came to this world. Naruto blinked. What do you mean this world? Iruka rubbed the bridge of his nose, assuming his lecturing position. The legend of the key-bearer, and the keyblade, states that as a person has a heart, so too do worlds. And the keyblade allows its user to access anything. Any lock, any secret. And any heart. Through the keyblade, you can open the connections between two hearts, whether they are of people, or of worlds. So the legend states, Iruka concluded, and Sarutobi nodded approvingly. Couldn't have put it better myself, Iruka. The key-bearer traveled the universe, unlocking the connections between worlds and spreading good to each he visited. He fought darkness, conquered it, and sealed the hearts of people and worlds against darkness that threatened to consume and destroy them. The Sandaime sighed, and leaned back in his chair. Naruto's grip on the keyblade tightened a little, but the key-bearer himself was not immune to darkness. We are not sure how, or why, but when the key-bearer turned to evil, he began unlocking the hearts of worlds, filling the souls of those worlds with the darkness within him. They were consumed and destroyed, all their inhabitants dying or worse, until finally he himself was destroyed, and the keyblade masterless. Sarutobi sighed deeply, and looked Naruto deeply in the eyes. The blonde tried not to look away from the deadly seriousness in the Hokage's gaze. Naruto. The keyblade is tied to your heart. But you also have the Kyuubi in you. In time, its influence on you may grow. Due to it using negative emotions, it might corrupt you when you are on a heightened state of emotion. I thought the Kyuubi couldn't affect me because of the seal. Naruto responded, nerves making his voice higher than usual. The Hokage sighed. Normally, yes, but the keyblade is tied directly to you. While using the keyblade to focus your chakra may give you incredible abilities, it also allows the Kyuubi's demonic chakra to enter it. A little at a time, maybe more if you learn to deliberately harness it. But, while the Kyuubi's chakra is no doubt powerful, it is also tainted with its darkness. Sarutobi pointed at the keyblade, which Naruto now regarded with suspicious eyes. The keyblade chose you as its wielder because it found you suitable. You rejected the evil within you and committed yourself to light. But, the life of a shinobi can easily lead down a path of darkness. This is not a game you must kill, or be killed in many instances, and such things can take their toll on a soul. And there is no doubt in my mind that the Kyuubi will try to use the keyblade to influence you. Naruto gritted his teeth. So, what do? I can't get rid of this thing, and if it's as powerful as those legends say it is. The blonde trailed off, uncharacteristically pensive. Iruka laid a comforting hand on Naruto, as Sarutobi smiled through the gloom. Naruto, the keyblade chose you. For what, I am unsure, but there is no doubt that there is a purpose in it. A purpose it would not have given you if it did not think you could accomplish it. So, believe in yourself, as I do. Iruka-sensei does, old man Ichiraku and Ayam-chan also. As you grow, and show people your true soul, more will believe in you, more will open their hearts to you. It is my precious people who remind me, every day, of why I continue to be Hokage, but more importantly, to believe in myself. Naruto nodded slowly, looking much calmer. Iruka smiled, and the blonde managed a small, but genuine one back. Thanks, old man. Sarutobi nodded. Hokage-sama, Iruka began. The keyblade itself. The Sandaime frowned thoughtfully. Yes. Telling people you wield a legendary weapon like that will probably not go over well. So instead, Naruto, tell those who ask about it that it is a family heirloom. A weapon fashioned after the legendary keyblade. The Sandaime smiled. One you should definitely put in a lot of effort to master. Naruto blinked. Ha! Iruka shook his head. Naruto, the more you know about how to use it and what it can do, the better a weapon it will become. And, the more control you will have over it. Naruto nodded, his mouth forming a silent O in understanding. All right. I'll train non-stop. I mean, now that I can do Kage Bunshin, I'll have lots of practice partners. Naruto grinned. Before adopting a more serious look. Old man, about the family heirloom thing. Wouldn't it be more convincing if I knew who my family was? Sarutobi sighed, looking rather tired. I'm sorry Naruto, but I can't tell you that. Not until you are 16, at least. This, coincidentally, would have been the age I would have told you about the Kyuubi. Naruto sighed, and shrugged, smiling almost sadly. Yeah. Okay. I've been up all night, so can I go sleep? The Sandaime and Irika sweat dropped, but the former managed to recover and nodded with a smile. Naruto turned to Irika and grinned. See you in a week, Irika-sensei. Just you wait, I'll be the best ninja there. Irika laughed. Alright Naruto. I look forward to it. Just please, try to be on time. Naruto pouted. I will. Sheesh, I'm only late to the boring stuff. Irika's eyebrow twitched. Boring stuff? Naruto smirked and stuck his tongue out, before leaping out the window, keyblade leaning against his shoulder. See ya later, old man. Irika-sensei. Irika scowled after him into the early morning. Before shaking his head with an exasperate smile, he turned back to face the Hokage once more. The old man looked solemn, contemplating his desk. Hokage-sama. Are you sure you can't tell him about his family? His father's orders were very explicit, Sarutobi replied quietly. And besides, with the Keyblade and Kyuubi, he'll be getting enough attention as it is. If his parentage was revealed, Sarutobi's gaze went to the wall with 4 portraits hanging from it, and his eyes rested on the last one. Irika's eyes found the Hokage's target and they widened. You mean? Sarutobi smirked. Seems pretty obvious now, doesn't it? Irika gulped and turned back to his Hokage. Then, his mother. Sarutobi nodded. I know who she was. And he'd be in no better straits with her identity revealed either. Still Irika, I think he's already discovered that family is more than blood. He was falling, air rushing by him at incredible speed, but his eyes were closed. He felt water envelope him, its cool embrace slowing his descent. He opened his eyes. He blinked, looking around a forest clearing, butterflies flying about the long grass. A girl waved at him in the distance, long brown hair framing a cheerful, smiling face. Naruto felt himself smiling back, happiness at seeing this girl, familiarity rising within him. Her expression changed to shock, one hand covering her mouth while the other pointed to his right and up. Naruto turned and gasped. A person was falling from the clouds, orange clothing and blonde hair fluttering. And then he was falling, looking down on Konoha. The field he had been standing in still visible, the girl alone now, watching. He looked directly down and saw a ceremonial pond in the courtyard of a huge complex, and he closed his eyes as he hit the water, sinking, flailing again. He found his feet as the abyss around him stopped being water, just like in the deep dive. He found himself standing on a very similar platform, only decorated with the mural of a giant fox with 9 tails, facing a giant toad wearing a hakama and smoking a pipe. A familiar-looking man stood on the toad's head, until a bright light issued, blanking out the platform. Naruto looked up as 9 figures dressed in black robes and straw bucket hats surrounded him. The keyblade appeared in his hand to block a sword strike from one, whose red eyes glared out from the shadow cast by the hat. The figure fell back, transforming with the surroundings, darkness dissolving in the face of sunlight. A black-haired, black-eyed boy in blue stood in the surf of a beach, smirk on his face and hand extended towards Naruto. A massive wave closed in on them, and Naruto ran forward, hand also extended, trying to reach the boy. The wave struck them both, and Naruto once again found himself underwater. He looked back towards the boy who drifted away, hand still reaching for his, but try as Naruto could, he could not close the distance. Naruto fell back, and he was falling again. He landed once more in the dark abyss, standing on a platform. He could only get a quick look at it. 2 women stood together, one with red hair, feral eyes and whiskers, glaring away from a woman with long brown hair and gentle hazel eyes smiling sadly, before a figure completely covered in a black coat and hood attacked, a large, black and red sword with curling blades meeting his own silver and yellow keyblade. Naruto parried the attacker's blow, leaping up and front flipping over the head of the stranger. Keyblade extended, he struck his assailant's head, landed and twisted around to strike him in the back. The assailant met Naruto's strike and the blonde gaped. Smirking back at him through a slashed hood, his own face confronted him, blood-red eyes boring into his own. His red-eyed double shoved Naruto back with incredible force, sending him crashing through a platform that shattered like a stained glass window. As though in slow motion, Naruto saw various images in the window separate, spinning with him in his flight. One of Irika. Another of Sakura-chan. Another of the black-eyed boy. A pale-eyed blonde. A brunette with pupilless eyes. A red-haired boy with black rings around his green eyes. All shattered before him from some invisible force, and he was falling, vision darkening. BWH. Thud. Ow. Naruto mumbled against hardwood. With some difficulty, he pushed himself into a sitting position, leaning against his bed and rubbing his nose in irritation. Damn it. The blonde sighed, getting up to his feet and stretching. Stupid dream. His stomach growled, and the blonde groaned, looking at the clock by his rickety bed. Damn. I'm going to miss lunch. Naruto cursed, yanking off the pajamas he'd donned for his morning nap and running to the hamper in green boxers for his jumpsuit. Out of habit, he'd stuck it into the small container with the intention of washing it, as he did nearly every day. It was one of the few he had that weren't either too small for him to squeeze into or failing at the seams, and as he pulled it out he made a face at how bad it smelled. Crap, can't wash it in time for lunch. Oh man. Naruto sighed and looked around the apartment. A good-sized package that was sitting on the table catching his eye. Naruto walked over and looked at the simple note attached. Dear Naruto, sorry it took so long to get you some new clothes, but the Orphans Fund treasurer has been difficult. These should tide you over for a while. Sincerely, Old Man Hokage. Eagerly, Naruto ripped off the tape holding the box shut, and yanked out an orange and blue short-sleeved jacket, a hood flopping against its back, where a red spiral had been knit in. Matching shorts and a brand new, blue weapons pouch came next. Naruto saw that the box held at least 2 more pairs of jackets and shorts. He grinned, throwing on a black t-shirt and his new garments and heading out the door, before rushing back in with a curse. He'd forgotten the keyblade. If he was going to do any training today, he didn't want to delay by having to rush back and... A flash of light, and the weapon was sitting in his hand. Naruto blinked. Before grinning even wider than before. Awesome. I just wish my house keys were that easy to find, he laughed, forsaking the door entirely and leaping out the window, jumping from roof to roof. Ichiraka Ramen soon came into sight, and Naruto landed outside, pushing through the flaps and setting the keyblade leaning against the counter as he took his seat. Old man, the usual please. Ichiraku smiled brightly at the sight of Naruto. Doing a double take from the cooking vats to gape at the forehead protector now sitting on Naruto's brow. Naruto, what are you doing with that? Naruto grinned and adjusted the headband slightly. I passed the exam. There was this. Extra credit thing that I did. Tsuchi raised his eyebrow at the blonde, while his daughter Ayam looked at Naruto, smiling but with eyes full of concern. Extra credit? Naruto sighed. Well. I'm not sure Old Man Hokage would appreciate me blabbing everything. But trust me when I say I earned this, the blonde emphasized by tapping his protector twice. Ichiraku smiled, before laughing. Ah, Naruto. That's great news. Ayam nodded, her bright smile instantly bringing a matching one to Naruto's face. Her gaze dropped, and she blinked at the keyblade resting next to Naruto. Naruto, what about that? What's that thing? Ayam asked. Tsuchi eyed the weapon with a concerned look alongside his daughter. Naruto rubbed the back of his head. It's a family heirloom. I inherited it. From my family, Naruto explained, straight-faced. Ayam and her father's sweat dropped. Tsuchi sighed. This another one of those things the Hokage wouldn't want you blabbing about. Naruto's nervous smile was all the answer he needed, and he shook his head with a smirk. Never a dull day with you, is it? The old chef laughed, turning and heading into the back of the shop. Ayam stared for a few moments at the keyblade, leading Naruto to wave his hand in front of her face. Ayam-chan. You okay? The brown-haired woman shook her head free of her trance, and smiled politely at Naruto. Oh yes. Hang on, Dad will need help with the rest of the ingredients. After a hearty lunch, Naruto had set out for a training field. Konoha was literally packed with them, ranging from simple fields with target posts for kunai throwing practice, to the vast forest of death. Naruto just chose a nice, simple clearing with several dummies and posts set up. Looking around, he took a deep breath and held up the keyblade, forming the ram seal over the handle. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. The keyblade glowed blue slightly for a moment, before patches of smoke blew up all around Naruto. He coughed slightly, before the wind cleared it and revealed the fruits of his jutsu. The blonde blinked. Holy crap, he muttered, as the entire field seemed filled with Narutos, all with the keyblade in hand. Naruto grinned, and leaped up to the top of a post. Alright, listen up everyone. You know what I want to do. Yeah! His numerous copies roared back. The original thrust his keyblade into the air above his head. Then let's get going. About 24 shadow clones came forward to circle the post Naruto was standing on, while the rest set to sparring with each other. Naruto leaped off the post, a subconscious nudge directing him to dive while plunging his keyblade into one clone. Its own keyblade shot up and deflected Naruto's attack, sending the original spinning back and landing on his butt with a thud. Ow! Hey! The clone shrugged. What? I blocked. You never said I couldn't defend myself. Yeah. Okay, let's go. For real this time, you smartass. You do know that I am you, right? Naruto blinked. The clones charged, yelling battle cries which Naruto echoed. Deciding to ignore the subconscious cues for the moment, he slashed through a few, leap flipping over a pair that had struck as one forward. He slashed them both from behind, a particularly violent nudge making him turn around. One of his clones threw its keyblade at Naruto, and the blonde deflected it, charging forward. The counterfeit keyblade poofed into non-existence like its clone did on the end of the real thing. Naruto jumped up to avoid 4 of his doubles attacking from all sides, and spotting another that had risen up to hit him in the air, he threw the keyblade as hard as he could. The weapon blew right through the clone, and continued on towards the edge of the field. At that moment, a blue-haired girl in a gray coat was moving between trees. Her pale eyes caught sight of the incoming projectile and widened. Naruto cursed. Damn it! Look out or dash. The keyblade vanished in a flash of light, a meter from the cringing girl, and reappeared back in Naruto's hand. The blonde blinked, landing almost numbly. Around him, his clones continued battling, though a few stopped to stare at the red-faced girl. Naruto leaped forward, easily covering the distance between them. You okay? I'm sorry, what was this girl's name again? He'd seen her before. Hinata. The blue-haired girl nodded, finger nervously tapping in front of her stomach. Her face was red and averted. Why yes, and Naruto-kun, she responded quietly. Naruto rubbed his fingers against the palm of his empty hand, absently thinking he probably needed to get gloves. The keyblade's hilt was rubbing his palms uncomfortably. Naruto quickly refocused his thoughts to the girl before him, still nervously finger-tapping. Hinata, did you need something? Hinata shook her head. No, and Naruto. Naruto frowned, then snapped his fingers. Oh. I'm sorry, were you going to train here? Hinata looked up at Naruto's face, blushing even harder before looking away again. No, and Naruto-kun, she squeaked. I can, You say another. Nah, it's okay. Naruto said happily, we can share the field, right? Oi, guys. Make some room. The sea of Narutos instantly stopped fighting, before moving towards the far end of the field and resuming their battles. Hinata blinked at this, staring at Naruto in wonder. And Naruto-kun. Hey, are those, B-Bunshin? Naruto grinned. No, Kage Bunshin. Cool huh? Hinata nodded furiously, looking down again. Her eyes catching sight of the keyblade. Oh no. Naruto-kun. Hinata got out. Naruto turned back from watching his clones and blinked at her. Yes, Hinata-chan. Hinata squeaked and seemed to blush even harder, making Naruto frown. Hinata-chan. You okay? Hinata nodded, taking deep breaths. Why yes, and Naruto-kun, but Hinata looked away a bit again. Why your W weapon? The blonde ninja raised up the keyblade, smiling embarrassingly. Oh, yeah. Sorry about almost hitting you, I didn't see you. And Naruto-kun. It's okay, I just. Hinata managed to steer her eyes to the weapon, glistening in the sunlight. I've never seen anything like it. What is it, Naruto-kun? She asked, a hint of wonder in her soft voice. Naruto closed his eyes thoughtfully, before responding. Guess you could call it a family heirloom, heh. Naruto swung it around a few times. It's called the, a keyblade, Naruto explained. Hinata smiled shyly. It looks very, I'm impressive, she stuttered. Naruto nodded with a smile. Thanks. Why you're welcome, Hinata returned. They stood in silence for a few moments. Hey, Hinata-chan. I kind of need to get back to training. Hinata nodded, fingers tapping. Alright, and Naruto-kun. Hey, if you don't have anyone else, you could train with me? Hinata blinked, nervously shaking her head. What? I mean, I'm not very good and… Well, that's why you train, right? Naruto laughed, taking her by the hand and pulling her towards his clones. I'm sure we can. Naruto abruptly noticed that it was getting harder to pull Hinata. Naruto turned around and gawked at a passed-out Hinata lying on the ground. Hinata-chan. Hinata-chan. Speak to me. In his rush to check her pulse, he didn't notice the dreamy smile. Chapter 4, Nights and Mornings After. And then? Kakashi prompted Naruto, who of course had been the one relating the entire story. Naruto flushed a bit, rubbing the back of his head. Well, She woke up eventually, but she was still pretty woozy, so I cut my practice short and walked her home. The blonde demon container frowned thoughtfully. Is she, anemic or something? Hinata-chan, that is. The silver-haired jounin easily resisted the urge to laugh, and schooled his face into its usual nonchalant expression. No. Naruto frowned. Okay. So, Kakashi-sensei. Can you help me with my training? Kakashi sighed. Naruto, I can't play favorites. I will be training you all to improve your abilities as ninja, but more importantly, as a team. But don't worry, you will be learning a lot from me. Naruto grinned happily at this. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. The jounin shrugged and turned around. Don't mention it. See you tomorrow. Be early. Naruto rolled his eyes. I saw that, Kakashi stated. Naruto stuck his tongue out at him, before turning around and making the ram seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 4 dozen Narutos appeared, wielding keyblades of their own. The original smirked and swung his own weapon around by its chain. Alright guys, bring it on. Yeah! They yelled, charging. Kakashi smirked a little, before pulling out his Ika Paradise and heading for the nearby road as the sounds of violence soon followed. He paused for a moment. You could train with him, Kakashi said casually, before resuming his casual walk. As a badly blushing Hinata peeked out from behind a tree. Higher in the same tree, a black-eyed, black-haired boy dressed in blue and white snorted, before turning back to watch Naruto battle his clones. The same boy glowered as Naruto fought brilliantly with his weapon, dodging and slashing and tumbling as though he'd been fighting with the thing all his life. Where did you get that weapon, dead last? Far from the rolling forests of Konoha, in the depths of interspace, a small, brightly colored world slowly orbited its bright yellow sun. Green dominated the continents, blue its oceans, and fluffy white clouds lazily drifted in the atmosphere. On the largest continent, there was a great kingdom. White houses of stone with red roofs surrounded a massive white and blue castle, bearing banners and blue symbols similar to the 3 circle-shaped charm on the end of Naruto's keyblade. The outer walls enclosed sprawling green gardens with fountains and trimmed hedges in artistic arrangements, leading up to the main keep of the castle, a massive collection of proud towers stretching up into the night sky. Within one of these towers, gazing out a large window, a pensive-looking black mouse stood, gloved hands held behind his back. His gaze, rather on his kingdom, as judging by the crown on his head, he was in fact the king, was fixed on the star-filled sky above. The room was messy study of some sort, shelves of fine wood holding books, scrolls, globes, and various other artifacts. Illuminated by a few old-fashioned lanterns, the orange light cast the chamber into eerie relief. At the entrance, large wooden door open, a female mouse in a pretty pink robe and wearing a small, matching crown stood, hands clasped before her stomach. Mickey? Mickey, are you alright? The king blinked slightly and turned around, smiling at the pink-clad mouse. Oh, sorry Minnie. Guess I was thinking too hard, ha. Minnie sighed, shaking her head. Is it the keyblade again? The king held out his gloved hand, and with a white flash of power a golden, key-shaped sword appeared. The mouse frowned at the weapon, experimentally swinging it a few times. He shrugged and smiled. Looks like everything's working fine. Just. Mickey turned back to the window, black eyes narrowing in focus at a particular star. It was little different from surrounding stars in the sky, twinkling cheerfully. But the keyblade in his hand seemed to single it out, the will behind the legendary weapon trying to express importance related to this world. Is it like the one before? Minnie asked. The one that went out? Mickey shook his head. No. This one seems safe enough. What that means though, well golly, got me. Minnie sighed again, and crossed the room, pulling up the edge of her robe to step over the various books, scrolls, and objects littering the stone floor. She stopped before the king, arms crossed as a stern expression appeared on her face. Now Mickey, staying up all night again is not going to help. Ah, I know, the king pouted. It's just hard, you know. Something is calling out to the keyblade. Something is coming and I don't know what. Depriving yourself of sleep won't help you figure it out, now will it? Minnie pointed out reasonably, and the king sighed. When you're right, you're right. Mickey grinned. Knew I married you for a reason, besides not being able to do this king job on your own? Minnie replied with a smirk and wink. Mickey chuckled, taking her in his arms. That, and many other reasons, he said. Minnie sighed and leaned in his embrace, shaking her head with a gentle smile. Waha waha. Crash. Mickey and Minnie blinked in surprise. What was that? Mickey asked, pulling away from the queen, keyblade at the ready. It came from inside, Minnie stated, and the king nodded before running out the door. Minnie followed, Mickey rushing through various corridors and down staircases, until finally arriving at the massive doors to the throne room. Cautiously, he entered, looking about the vast chamber. His eyes found a blue-clad duck, grumbling and rubbing his feathered bottom, sitting before one of the huge stone pillars lining the room. Donald? What are you doing? Mickey groaned. Don't tell me you've been at this new exercise of Merlin's since you started. Donald's bad mood abruptly vanished, and he smiled cheerfully at the king. Which, the king decided, was quite a feat, considering the magician had to have been at this for hours. Your Majesty. Well. Yes. But, just take a look at this. With that, Donald turned back around, holding his staff out before him. Blue energy came into existence, and traveled down to the duck's yellow feet. Determined, he put a webbed foot onto the pillar, before putting his other foot on the pillar. He pulled himself into a standing position on the stone, and began to walk up, slowly but surely. Mickey blinked in shock, as Minnie gasped. Ha! What's all the ruckus about, Ayuk? A tall, dog-like creature in armor asked, rubbing sleep out of his eyes as he walked into the throne room. Hey, Goofy! Look! Donald called out. The knight blinked at Donald, waving at him while standing on the pillar. He rubbed his eyes again. Hey, you're doing it! Donald nodded proudly, crossing his arms over his chest. Mickey smiled. Well, what do you know? It works, huh? But aren't you afraid of running out of magic and falling? Mickey asked. Donald shook his head. Well yes, Your Majesty, eventually you will, but this exercise lets you increase how much magic you have at any one time. It's like exercising your magic muscles. Mickey grinned, and Minnie frowned. She'd seen that look before. Oh no, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking, are you? Ah, come on Minnie. Looks like Merlin's come up with an exercise we could all use. Nothing wrong with some extra magic, right? Or sticking to surfaces. Mickey turned to Goofy. Goofy, I'd like you to start training our knights in this exercise. Goofy saluted smartly. Yes sir, Your Majesty. But for now, it's late, and we should all be getting to bed, Minnie reminded them, crossing her arms over her chest. Mickey smirked at her. I know, Minnie, I know. We'll try it tomorrow. Good work Donald. Mickey complimented the duck. Donald puffed himself up a little more and grinned. Ha, I can't wait to show Daisy this when she gets back. She'll dash. Donald blinked, and abruptly realized that his magic was running out. The blue glow vanished from his feet. He gulped. Oh, the duck got out, just before slipping back into gravity's embrace. Wah wah wah. Thud. Minnie sighed, and walked towards the downed duck, healing spell at the ready. Mickey winced sympathetically, while Goofy just chuckled a bit. Well, least it ain't as bad as when he was trying to magic up fireworks, huh? The night stage whispered to the king. Mickey smirked. Indeed. Naruto felt himself falling once more, head first into darkness. The keyblade flashed into his hand and cast a glow around him, giving him light enough to see around him. Suddenly Naruto felt himself flipping onto his feet and landing on a hard surface. He looked around and noticed that he was on top of a platform once more, like when he first obtained the keyblade. This platform depicted a person in a strange form of armor. The armor was segmented and was a deep red and gold color, and the helmet that the person wore had two spikes that made it look like the wearer had bunny ears. Oddly enough, the person also carried a keyblade and wielded it high above their head. They stood in a deep purple background with yellow circles surrounding them. Naruto scratched the back of his head and looked at the stained glass below him. Why am I here again? Naruto asked aloud into the darkness. To think you would be younger than him. Naruto spun around and came face to face with an older girl with blue hair down to her shoulders. She wore a black tank top that hugged against the girl's chest and black spandex shorts like Sakura's that was covered by what Naruto thought was a skirt. The girl also had black leggings that tucked into metal-plated heels and a pair of white arm guards that went up past her elbow and functioned as gloves too. Naruto blinked at the girl and tilted his head. Who are you? I am Aqua. The girl held her hand to the side and a flash of light blinded Naruto for a moment. Your senior. Naruto gaped at the item that glowed in Aqua's hand as she held it forward. It was a keyblade with a white curved guard and a blue blade that extended forward. There were two triangular holes on the blade, one close to the guard and the other near the top next to the teeth of the keyblade. The teeth looked a lot more dangerous than Naruto's own keyblades. It looked like half a snowflake and Naruto could already tell the edges were dangerous. I see you have a keyblade too, Naruto gulped. Aqua said nothing and then rushed forward. Naruto yelped and summoned his own keyblade to block Aqua's. The girl's eyes locked onto Naruto's silver key with the golden guard and widened briefly. The kingdom. Aqua kicked off of Naruto's stomach and spun around elegantly before landing in a crouch. She then burst forward and started to slash quickly and precisely at Naruto, who was forced to block as many strikes as he could. The girl's attacks were too quick for the boy though, and a horizontal slash sent Naruto reeling backwards and holding his stomach in pain. Damn, what the hell is going on? Naruto cursed. Aqua didn't let Naruto rest and ran forward once more, making Naruto jump high. He looked down at the blue-haired girl and saw her phase out of view. What ash? Aqua appeared behind the boy and raised her blade to strike his back. As she swung down, Naruto quickly placed his keyblade behind his back to block the attack. The slash didn't hit Naruto, but it still sent him careening down to the platform. He placed one hand on the ground and righted himself so he wouldn't fall on his face. Aqua landed gracefully and Naruto decided it was about time to go on the offensive. With a loud cry, Naruto shot towards Aqua and lunged forward. His thrust was easily parried, but the boy wasn't done yet. Using the force from the girl's block, Naruto spun on his heel and aimed to hit Aqua's head. Again he was blocked, but Naruto pulled back and hooked his keyblade's teeth onto the girl's before twirling his body upwards and using the connected keyblades to slingshot his body above Aqua's. Aqua looked up in mild shock as Naruto unhooked his blade and aimed to strike the girl's head. Moving quickly, Aqua leaned forward and raised her back leg, kicking Naruto in the stomach. Naruto flew backwards with wide eyes and a final thought before he hit the ground, damn, she's flexible. The blonde impacted the ground and groaned as he heard Aqua walk towards him. You aren't the one he is in, Aqua said as she stood over Naruto. But you have potential. Who are you? Aqua turned around and headed towards the darkness. Naruto pushed his body up with a grunt and stared at the girl's retreating form. Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto. Who is he? What are you talking about? Naruto yelled out. What's going on? Aqua turned her head slightly as she continued to walk, regarding the blonde boy once more, and chuckled. You will be strong. I can feel from how powerful your heart is. Things will be tough, but never give up. Aqua's form was almost gone before saying one last thing to Naruto. If you ever come across a boy with the name of the sky, stay close. He is important. Aqua disappeared into the darkness, leaving a very confused boy. Hey, wait. Wait. I need more information. You have a keyblade, you need to tell me what is going on. Naruto received nothing but silence and he felt his body becoming lighter. He was waking up. Aqua. Naruto slurped up the last of his cup of chicken ramen, licking his lips in satisfaction at his breakfast, before standing up from the kitchen table and walking back to his bedroom. He pulled on a set of his new clothes, over a long-sleeved black shirt he'd managed to dig up, and headed out the window, nimbly descending the 4 stories of his apartment to the road below. Cheerfully he smiled at a pair of old ladies chatting on the steps of another apartment. They glared back and spat as he passed, but he paid that no mind. I'm a ninja now. A real ninja. So screw ya, old hags. The blonde thought happily, following the road to the training ground. He'd gotten up earlier than usual, so he'd decided to take it easy and walk. There were things he needed to think about after last night. Who was Aqua? How many keyblades were there in the world? And who is this boy that's related to Sky? Naruto rubbed his chin and thought. It was all too much to take in. The wind blew across his face and Naruto looked into the bright sky. He would think of these things, grinned, hands behind his head as he leisurely strolled. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, it was a beautiful, peaceful day. Until two green blurs zoomed past Naruto, spinning the blonde around like a top before he fell, dizzily, to the ground. Ugh! Wah! Ha! Hey, are you okay? Naruto blinked, trying to make his eyes focus. A person-shaped blob, with pink and brown mixed among other colors, slowly transformed into a concerned-looking girl with brown hair in twin buns, a pink, Chinese-style shirt, and black silk pants. Ha! The girl sighed and extended a hand to Naruto, which he took. She pulled him up to his feet, though he still wobbled a bit. I'm sorry about that. My sensei and Lee like to run around the village a couple times every morning. This path is part of their route. The girl went on, as Naruto's head still spun a little. I see, Naruto managed, holding his head. The girl giggled a little. Naruto blinked and frowned into the girl's face thoughtfully. Have we met? No. Ten. The girl blinked and nodded. Yeah, that's me. Who are you? Uzumaki Naruto. We were in class together. Naruto replied. Ten narrowed her eyes in thought, before nodding as the memory came to her. Right. You were the one who got Irika-sensei with a whoopee cushion. Ten laughed a little at the memory. That was hilarious. The blonde grinned sheepishly. Well, I was having an off day, Naruto confessed. Ten smiled happily at him. So, what brings you out here this early? Team meeting, my first, Naruto replied with a grin. Ten nodded, and then frowned. Hey wait. If you were in my class, then how I failed the exam. 3 times, Naruto confessed, a bit awkwardly. He quickly grinned at Tenten's apologetic look. But hey! No worries. One little hurdle to becoming Hokage. Ten laughed a little at that, and Naruto with her. Until he noticed that she was still holding his hand. The girl's eyes drifted down to their joined hands as well, and she quickly withdrew with a mild blush. So? Who did you get as your sensei? Ten asked. Naruto smiled. Hokage Kakashi. He's a little lazy, but still. What is this? Has my eternal rival taken on a genin team? Naruto jumped a little at the large, green-clad, grinning man who suddenly appeared. He wore a jounin vest over his skin-tight, bright green spandex. Naruto's eyes widened just a little bit more as Ten put a hand to her head with an exasperated smile. Yosh! At last, Gai-sensei. I too may have an eternal rival. A boy also clad in green, and seemingly a miniature version of the large man down to their eyebrows and black, bowl-cut hair, appeared next to him. Guy began to cry rivers of tears. At last! My adorable student has a suitable rival. For only one instructed by my own rival could hope to match the burning pillar of youth that is Rock Lee. Oh Gai-sensei! Lee sobbed, almost comically, as he leapt up and hugged Guy happily. Guy returned it warmly, sniffling as though in great emotional distress. Ten sighed, and checked her watch, as Naruto continued to watch in confusion. Lee, Gai-sensei! Lee, Gai-sensei! Lee, excuse me? Naruto asked, raising a hand as though in class. Ten shot him a grateful look as the 2 green-clad ninjas parted. We were almost to the sunset, and by then it would be too late, she thought. Yes, Uzumaki Naruto. Guy asked grandly. Naruto blinked. How do you know my name? Guy grinned, teeth flashing in the sun, as he gave Naruto a thumbs up. All know of the burning youth you possess, Naruto. Your determination in the face of adversity such as yours is worthy of praise. Only could a ninja, possessed of such fire, could hope to surmount such odds. Naruto couldn't help but smile back at this. So, someone thinks I'm a hero for the Kyuubi, and not a demon. Yosh! Gai-sensei, may I ask what this burden of Naruto's is? Lee inquired. Guy shook his head solemnly. You can ask, but alas, I cannot divulge that information. Be rest assured, however, that his is a spirit that is a worthy one. Naruto rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Thank you, Guy Sensei, Naruto replied. Tenten frowned and looked at Naruto quizzically. Guy cleared his throat and Naruto blinked. Oh. I have to get going. I'm meeting my team at 7 and… No need, Naruto. Alas, my eternal rival Kakashi is never on time. So, feel free to take this time to appreciate your all too fleeting fires of youth. Guy grinned and gave Naruto a thumbs up once more. Thanks Guy-sensei, but I want to get some training done while I'm waiting. Guy grinned and nodded. I understand, Naruto. Very well. I will see you later then. Wait Guy-sensei. Lee spoke. Guy turned and raised a single bushy brow. Guy-sensei, I have heard a rumor regarding Naruto, and I was wondering if I could inquire about it. The green-clad boy spoke. Guy nodded and smiled. If it's all right with you, Naruto. Sure. Naruto said nervously. Naruto, I have heard a rumor that you wield a most unique weapon. May I see it if such rumors are true? Lee asked. Naruto scratched his head while Tenten raised an eyebrow at Lee. Lee, exactly where did you hear these rumors anyway? I heard it only as a rumor, Lee replied, to which Naruto and Tenten sweat dropped. Guy shook his head, adopting a dramatic pose. Lee, one should not believe rumors. They are stirred up by unyouthful people with no fire of youth to stoke. Lee struck his own dramatic pose. But Guy-sensei, I only wish to confirm it. It's okay, Naruto said, holding up his hand. I'm all right with showing it. The decision was pretty easy for Naruto. 1. Eventually everyone would find out that he wielded the keyblade. And 2. The melodramatics were creeping him out a little. So, without ceremony, Naruto held out his hand and focused. Keyblade. A flash of white light and the weapon appeared in his grip, shining in the early morning sun. Tenten gawked, Lee's eyebrows leapt up, and Guy-sensei nodded. He was aware of Naruto's burdens, as were all the Jounin. And it appeared that this was one Naruto had no problem divulging. What is it? Asked Lee, fascinated. Naruto opened his mouth to speak. A keyblade. I thought it was just a legend, Tenten spoke quietly, gazing in awe at the weapon in the blonde's hand. Naruto blinked a bit at her and smiled sheepishly. It's not the real keyblade, just a family heirloom. Really? Naruto's face turned a bit solemn. It's all they left me. Tenten frowned sympathetically. Lee and Guy, however, wosh. Naruto, this keyblade may not be of legend, but it is evident it is an expression of the greatness of your family. No doubt their fires of youth burned bright. Guy bellowed, making Naruto jump back in shock. The green-clad Jounin was sobbing a river of tears. Wosh. Naruto, your weapon is the epitome of the expression of youthfulness. Beaten only by Jie-sensei. Surely your family shared the same values. Lee added, also crying rivers and reaching for the heavens dramatically. Naruto blinked. Yeah. Sure. Tenten shook her head in fond exasperation. Relax, there's no way you're related. Look at the eyebrows. She whispered with a small chuckle. That's not what I was afraid of, Naruto laughed in response. He leaned the keyblade back against his shoulder and smiled brightly at them all. Well, see you guys later. Guy-sensei, Lee, Tenten. With that, Naruto leapt away, deciding to just take a shortcut to the bridge. Tenten watched him leave. Guy blinked and waved his hand in front of her face. Dash. It is all right, Tenten. No doubt Naruto's shining youth rendered you dazed. Guy announced grandly. Tenten blushed. What? Wosh. Indeed, now I know Naruto is worthy as my eternal rival. His youth captures the hearts of all. Lee yelled. Tenten groaned. No, he didn't. We must celebrate our teammates' burning youth. Indeed, Guy-sensei. No, I mean oh god, not the hug. Lee, Guy-sensei. Lee, Guy-sensei. Lee, Tenten sighed. This has long day written all over it. For some reason though, when she thought of Naruto, it didn't seem as bad. Chapter 5 Energy Energized. Uchiha Sasuke was not at the top of his class for nothing. While much praise and applause had been directed his way out of pity and the prestige of his name, he'd made sure to earn every bit of it. He took being a ninja seriously in all respects. He had to fulfill his mission. Every lesson he'd studied ruthlessly, every jutsu and training exercise he'd put in the effort to master. He trained every day, no exceptions. And he had little patience for those who got into this job for glamour or romance, such as the babbling, pink-haired fangirl at his arm right now. But, as Sasuke looked out at the small stream underneath the bridge he was standing on, Sakura chattering happily nearby, he was faced with a conundrum he couldn't resolve. Uzumaki Naruto. The dead last in their class. He was the clown, the goof-off, the loudmouth moron who could barely make it to class on time. He was one of the aforementioned people Sasuke thought didn't take the way of the ninja seriously. True, Sasuke felt something close to camaraderie with the blonde, since they both seemed to have been alone for the majority of their lives. But still, Naruto had failed to graduate 3 times, despite entering the academy 3 years early. Sasuke had seen Naruto as someone who wasted opportunities, who didn't work for what he'd been given. Especially now, with that bizarre weapon of his. I hope you like this brand of conditioner I'm using, I think it's much more pleasant than the last, don't you think? What was that thing? Sasuke wondered. It looked every bit as comical and ridiculous as Naruto himself, and yet the dead last clearly knew how to use it. This was certain, given his performance against Kakashi and the training session Sasuke had observed yesterday. What was more, how did Naruto learn a Jounin-level technique anyway? It seemed likely that the key-like weapon, the Kage Bunshin, and Naruto's newfound skill, that, Sasuke grudgingly noted, was easily a match for his own in many circumstances, were all connected. How? He was unsure, but Sasuke was going to find out. Because if that weapon got Naruto up close to his level, what could it do for him? Oi, morning Sakura-chan. The blonde in question announced happily, landing on the bridge with a grin. Morning, bastard. Loser, Sasuke returned flatly as Naruto smirked. Sakura growled. Naruto, you idiot. Don't call Sasuke-kun that. What else would I call him? Naruto teasingly replied. Now that was unexpected, Sasuke noted. Sakura blinked rapidly but her scowl came back. Idiot. I'm going to dash. Loser, Sasuke interrupted, speaking a bit more loudly than his usual monotone. Sakura and Naruto paused, both turning their attention to him. Yeah bastard. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Fight me. Why? Naruto asked, frowning. Sakura laughed a bit. Yeah, why Sasuke-kun? You'll just slaughter him and dash. Loser takes Sakura on a date. What? Replied both in shock. Inwardly, Sasuke smirked. He was brilliant. Wait a minute here, bastard. Shouldn't it be winner takes Sakura-chan on a date? Naruto protested, but he was already assuming a fighting stance. Sasuke smirked outwardly this time. Since you'll lose anyway, I suppose I should make sure you get something you want, he returned simply. Naruto growled and Sasuke congratulated himself on actually paying some attention to his useless teammates. He'd beat Naruto, and hopefully this setup would make the idiot congenial enough to spill information about his changes. Directly asking was not Sasuke's style, it would look weak. How about the winner gets to decide the prize? Naruto retaliated. Again. You have no chance, loser. Now, are we going to fight or not? Sasuke asked. Naruto narrowed his eyes and held out a hand. In a flash, his strange, key-shaped weapon appeared. Naruto settled into that unusual fighting stance from before. Sasuke felt a little surprised at the raw determination seemingly burning in the blonde's eyes. Sakura backed off, watching a bit pensively. I get the feeling I'm going to be saying this a lot, Naruto began, but don't underestimate me. The blonde lashed out with his weapon and Sasuke brought out a kunai to parry it. Sasuke found himself slightly surprised as Naruto continued his attack, forcing Sasuke to move back as the strikes grew stronger. Sasuke finally leapt off the bridge entirely and landed on the bank nearby, in a large grassy field. Naruto leapt after him, twirling the ki around in flare before throwing it with deadly accuracy at Sasuke. The Uchiha leapt away, mindful of Naruto's strategy with the weapon before, and wasn't disappointed when it teleported back into Naruto's hands. He parried the blonde's next strike with his kunai again, using the momentum passed to him from Naruto to power a roundhouse kick to his opponent's shoulder. Naruto twisted away from the blow, rolling on the ground and to his feet, his fingers in a cross over the hilt of his weapon. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 10 more Narutos appeared and they charged, striking at him in pairs. Sasuke leapt up and flipped backwards in midair, making 4 hand seals. Katon, Gakakyu no Jutsu. The fireball slammed into the mob of Narutos, easily blasting them out of existence and sending the real thing flying back, skidding along the ground on his feet and barely avoiding falling into the water. Sasuke landed easily and smirked at Naruto, who glared and made the same hand seal again. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A dozen Narutos poofed into existence this time. All but two charged for Sasuke, while one grabbed the real Naruto and began to swing him around at high speed. Sasuke pulled out two kunai and threw them at high speed, two Naruto clones being hit and poofing out of existence as the rest avoided it and continued forward. Sasuke kept moving out of range, sniping the clones, as the real Naruto was let loose, flying forward above the field. Naruto spun up his ki again and threw it for Sasuke, just as the remaining clones threw theirs as well. Sasuke, mindful of Naruto's fight with Kakashi, quickly made hand seals again. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. Sasuke spat several precise, bird-shaped fire blasts, taking out several of the cloned keys. Just before he shot the last one, however, Kai! This key-like weapon burst into smoke and became Naruto. The real weapon flashed into his hands as the last firebird left Sasuke's mouth. Naruto swung through the firebird, blasting through it as he landed and charged a surprised Sasuke. Clang! Damn it! Sasuke and Naruto thought, kunai pushing back against key weapon. Naruto was frustrated his gambit hadn't worked, and Sasuke was mentally cursing because he'd never seen Naruto use this tactic in his training. Did he come up with it while we were fighting, or before? Sasuke recovered quickly and struck, driving Naruto back, who deflected and parried every blow the Uchiha lashed out with. Naruto fell back slightly to one strike and twirled around, swinging his key weapon for Sasuke's side. The Uchiha brought out a second kunai and knocked the weapon away, thrusting with the other for Naruto's arm. The blonde bent his knees and dropped, swinging the key weapon for Sasuke's legs. Sasuke jumped back, and both genin glared at each other. Naruto was breathing a bit harder than usual, but Sasuke was nearly wheezing despite his efforts to focus and control his respiration. Damn! Only enough chakra for one more Gakakyu. Sasuke snarled as Naruto made the cross seal again, and a dozen Kage Bunshin appeared once more. Loser! How dare you become stronger than me, moron! How the hell are you getting so strong? Naruto smirked, Sasuke's rage increasing. What's the matter, bastard? Afraid of taking Sakura-chan out on a date? I guess you really are gay. That did it. Sasuke forced just enough chakra into his legs to leap high above Naruto and his clones. He made the proper hand seals and focused his rage along with his chakra into the first fire jutsu he'd ever mastered. Katan! Gakakyu no Jutsu! Sasuke roared, producing an even bigger fireball that raced down for Naruto. Naruto spun his ki again, the weapon beginning to glow a fierce blue, before he threw it up as hard as he could. The two projectiles, fireball and ki-like weapon, met in a terrific explosion that blinded Sakura, who was watching from the sidelines. Kaboom! Kaya! She cried, covering her eyes with a grimace. She blinked rapidly, slowly forcing the spots from her eyes as she ran anxiously over to ground zero. Several trees had caught fire, while the surrounding field now had a pretty large crater in it. Sakura looked about anxiously. Sasuke Kun. Sasuke Kunnn. She cried out. Just as a familiar blonde head popped out of the ground nearby with a scowl. Hey! What about me? I'm the one he tried to fry. Naruto shouted in irritation. Sakura gawped at this, her green eyes darting between the crater and Naruto quickly. Damn it Sakura, don't yell so loudly, an irritated, and familiar, voice grumped. Sakura turned and saw a dirty, but alive, Sasuke trudging up. Ignoring Naruto as he struggled to dig himself out, Sakura rushed and glomped Sasuke. Sasuke-kun. I didn't think you could dash. But Naruto dash. Oi, bastard. The hell was that for? Naruto demanded, finally fully out of the ground. He brushed himself off, scowling at Sasuke. The Uchiha scowled back. Idiot. Quit complaining you were too weak to fight me. I'm not the one barely able to stand, you bastard. Naruto retorted, his weapon flashing back into his hand. Sasuke shoved the concerned Sakura aside and stalked for Naruto. I'll show you barely able to stand, you dash. Ahem. All three genin turned to see Kakashi standing at the edge of the crater. His one visible eye was closed in that unusual smile of his. Since you seem to have so much energy in fighting each other, Why don't we find out just how much you can put into today's missions? Missions? What kind of missions? Naruto asked with a frown. Kakashi's eye smile seemed to grow. A sinking feeling appeared in Team 7's stomachs. Kakashi sat on the upper branches of a tree overlooking a backyard, contentedly reading his Ika Ika Paradise Volume 5. Below, a large assortment of kids were all gathered. A banner with the words "Happy Birthday Asuka" was strung over the house, as the red-headed birthday girl herself and a number of her friends scowled at Sakura. The pink-haired girl smiled uneasily back as she held out some cards. Your card is the Jack of Spades? Wrong. You stink. The birthday girl yelled, as the rest of the 6-year-olds booed. Sakura grimaced, but her discomfort was nothing next to Sasuke's. Mr. Ninja, can I have a balloon animal? Sasuke's eyebrow twitched violently. He stood as still as a statue, hair dyed red and face painted white as for a clown. His nose was covered in a red plastic squeaky ball. He was skulking near the fence of the yard, as a little boy stood before him, picking his nose. No, Sasuke stated. The little boy pouted. What kind of clown are you anyway? Sasuke smirked, as a not quite sane glint appeared in his eyes. I can breathe fire, he said menacingly, causing the little boy to run off crying. A number of Naruto's clones were trying to entertain the other kids with kazoos and other noisemakers, but they weren't very happy with them. Ow! You little brat! Why'd you kick me? Hey! Quit that! When I get my hands on you dash! The mother of little Asuka, who, Kakashi noted, had a perfect figure, part of the reason he'd taken this mission, walked underneath his tree and sighed. Are you sure they can't do anything better? Kakashi frowned and shrugged. Well, the blonde one said he had to go get something. I'm back. The original Naruto hopped over the fence, grinning from ear to ear. In one hand he carried a large, gray ball. He walked up to the sulking birthday girl. Humph. And what's that for, huh? Asuka snorted. Naruto grinned. Watch this. Hiya. Naruto threw the ball up into the air, before holding out his hand. The keyblade flashed into existence in his grip, making the watching children gasp. With a grin and wink at Sakura, Naruto leapt up and whacked the ball even higher, backflipping in midair and landing easily on one foot. The ball fell towards Sasuke's head, and just before the emo clown was about to whack it away in irritation, a Naruto clone, with its own keyblade, hit the ball back up into the air with 3 consecutive strikes. Asuka began to cheer, as did the rest of the children, as Naruto and his clones kept up the show, hitting the ball into the air while performing stunning aerial acrobatics. Even the mother, who had given Naruto nothing but glares since he arrived, began to smile and applaud with every dramatic leap, combo, and twirl the blonde put into his performance. Kakashi couldn't help but smile a bit himself. Naruto always did want attention, but he'd had to contend with negative attention most of his life. Positive attention was definitely to the demon container's liking, as evidenced by the carefree nature of his laughter and the honesty of his smiles. Sakura, for her part, tried to not smile, since her crush was scowling at the entire thing, but found herself failing to keep a straight face. Wow! Naruto's really impressive. I mean, today he fought Sasuke-kun so well. Wait, what am I saying? Yeah! Naruto's still a loud-mouthed idiot. No way he could have beaten Sasuke-kun. Shinaro. Her inner self piped in, letting Sakura dispose of her smile. Hey Sakura-chan. Hey! Watch this. Naruto shouted. One of his clones smacked the ball right to him, to which he whacked the ball to another clone, from there to another, and finally it was smacked back to Naruto, who had leapt high into the air. He whacked the ball straight down and it plummeted, making most of the kids gasp. Then cheer as another Naruto Kage Bunshin appeared right underneath the ball and whacked it back up just in time. Sakura found herself clapping happily. Well, so what? Just because he's funny doesn't mean I like him or anything. Definitely. Shinaro. Sasuke had taken to brooding near the punch bowl, watching every feat Naruto performed with a scowl. How the hell did that idiot get that weapon? It's not fair, a loser like him doesn't deserve something so powerful. What is that thing? Asuka, the birthday girl, asked loudly, indicating Naruto's weapon. The original had taken a brief break as his clones continued to knock the ball around above. The blonde grinned. It's a keyblade. It's, a family heirloom. The little kids crowded eagerly around Naruto, oohing and eyeing over the keyblade, which Naruto was happy to let them examine and touch. The blonde looked up briefly to see Sasuke scowling at him, to which Naruto just grinned. Family heirloom? Yeah, right. I'll find out how you got that thing, dead last. And when I do, that's it for part 1. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.